So everyone and their dog is saying that Ulduar is going to be hard, and I'm going to say that Ulduar is only going to be hard if you have a peanut brain mindset towards a raid and managing your guild. Okay, fair enough, it's going to be hard in some ways, but overall it's going to be so much easier than you think. Now, the problem with a classic community is they have barely any patience and don't understand that as you get better gear, the easier the content becomes. Patience is a quality seriously undervalued in the classic WoW raiding community because we hyper-focus on clearing a raid in week 1, because that's what we're used to. When in reality, if you spend 3 to 4 weeks progressing on a raid, that's pretty normal by the standards of modern MMO raiding. That's normal difficulty. Ulduar normal modes are definitely not going to be breaking guilds. Yes, the hard modes will be much more challenging, but if you're able to clear Ulduar on normal mode, it's going to be an absolute Chinese buffet of gear upgrades for your raid team, not to mention how 10-man mode is also available and much easier and provides a truckload of even more better gear upgrades. I still haven't mentioned how Heroic Plus dungeons will contain raid loots from the previous tier, and 10-mans from the previous tier will now contain 25-man loot. And even on top of that, 25-man mode will drop more loot. By the way guys, if you are looking to get ready for Ulduar, I do have a little cheeky, very fast gold making method on my subscriber only video. All you have to do is subscribe and you'll see it on my channel page. And if you're still leveling your character or trying to get some alts leveled up for Ulduar, you definitely want to be checking out the Rested XP leveling add-on. Rested XP just makes the leveling experience so smooth and so chill because it tells you exactly what to do. It tells you about secret quests that you can pick up for extra XP and tells you about graveyard and death skips to speed it up even more. And if you want 5% off, be sure to use my affiliate code down in the description. But anyway, let's carry on. When phase 2 drops, we're going to be able to hoover up many gear upgrades as a player, and a power spike of your raid will bump up dramatically. Yes, raiding Ulduar week 1 will be fairly challenging, especially if you're trying to get every single hard mode completed, but I guarantee after about 3 weeks most guilds will have every boss and most of the hard modes completed, and therefore the raid totally on farm. Because even some of the hard modes themselves are really easy, to be honest, because they are just simple DPS checks. And that's just totally normal. The difficulty of Ulduar is just going to feel like you're in a normal raid environment, especially for the retail player. If the content was difficult, it would take much longer to complete all of the hard modes and the raid in its entirety. Now, I've been working on a video this week about some of the hardest raid bosses over many different MMOs in the industry. I know these are extreme examples, but these are real examples of real hard raid bosses and raids. I mean, some raids took over 650 wipes for the top guilds to actually defeat, or only 0.5% of the game's population completed a raid, or in some cases you had to wait for the next expansion in order to be powerful enough to finish the raid. So that video will be releasing not much longer after this video, so be sure to check that one out. I guarantee that retail raiders, not even like mythic raiders, they're going to be sitting back and laughing at this Ulduar is hard narrative because it's nothing compared to the average mythic raid on retail. The main reason why there's this perception that Ulduar will be difficult isn't because the raid itself is actually difficult. It's because a big part of the classic population are simply less skilled players. And this is because the game attracts a more casual audience. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with this, of course. But saying that Ulduar is hard because it's a difficult raid is simply, in my humble opinion, just not accurate. It's hard because on average, classic WoW players are less skilled raiders than retail WoW raiders. Just because most guilds won't be able to complete the raid and all of the hard modes on week 1 does not mean that it's a difficult raid. In fact, it just means, again, it's just a normal raid by retail World of Warcraft standards. A more accurate thing to say would be Ulduar is a raid that is no longer easy. Yes, your casual dad guilds might take a while to get the raid completed, but because they're hoovering up so much gear in this phase, it's only a matter of time before they complete the content. If you really wanted to experience a difficult version of Ulduar, you had to play it on private servers, and people did much less DPS on private servers because there was a much smaller min-max theory crafting community. I mean, it's only a recent thing that Death Knights, for instance, have gone dual-wield rather than using a two-hander. In fact, I was looking back at some of my old footage from private servers, and I was doing about 8k DPS in full Ulduar gear with a two-handed weapon, and now I can do like 11 to 13,000 DPS with Phase 1 gear. And bearing those facts in mind, and also considering that private server raids were much more difficult, a lot of the private servers that I've played didn't see a dramatic player drop-off because the raid was too difficult. It just didn't happen. The only time where this really ever actually happened was playing Endless WoW, but that's a story for a different time. The point is, classes have now unleashed their true potential because of all the big brains that have come together and theory-crafted the class to do the maximum DPS. And also, these days, even casual guilds really go sweaty and min-max raid setups because now many raid teams are stacking DKs, Warlocks and Rogues and a few mages in there as well. The DPS that raid groups are doing now compared to private servers and the original Wrath of Lich King will be much higher, and I simply don't think that the extra tuning Blizzard have done to Ulduar will be enough to deter progress for the average guild. And again, this is totally fine. Classic is a different game to retail World of Warcraft and it attracts a different audience. Classic shouldn't be as difficult as retail WoW, and I'm definitely not saying that either. I think the difficulty of Classic WoW is totally fine, and maybe should have buffed Phase 1 just a little bit, but even then, it's not massively important because Phase 1 really is just a run-up phase. Overall, I just think that people are getting their knickers in a twist about Ulduar. Ulduar won't be a hard raid. It's just not going to be a brain-dead snooze fest like Phase 1 raiding was. It will likely be the perfect middle ground. Basically just your run-of-the-mill typical retail WoW raid without the mythic mode. Normal modes will be just as difficult as normal mode on retail, and hard modes as difficult as heroic modes, with Yogg-Saron and Algalon being just a little bit of a level higher. Now my advice will be to not do what my old guild did when progressing on Maru. Don't force your raid to wipe over 100 times on one boss. If you're wiping and not particularly progressing on a boss, well guess what? Your raid isn't skilled enough to defeat it. Therefore, you're going to have to wait until you get more gear. Be patient and everything that Ulduar has to offer will be doable, especially now as in Phase 2 there's so many different avenues that you can take to get more gear, whereas in some WoW progression you could only do the first few bosses to gear up your raid. And that is one of the reasons why Maru was so difficult, because mechanically it's such a simple encounter. You just needed so much AoE DPS to keep the adds in check. How are you going to increase your AoE DPS of your raid group without getting more gear? Ulduar progression very simply will not have the same issues. But anyway guys, may RNG Jesus favour you when it comes to loot drops. And to all my unholy Death Knight chads out there, do not reroll. Trust me, there's no need. Just before I jump off the video guys, normally when you subscribe to a channel you get absolutely nothing in return. But on my channel I have loads of subscriber only exclusive videos and guides. All you have to do is subscribe, go to my channel page and the subscriber only video will be waiting for you. But anyway guys, until my next video, ciao.